Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. Today we are here with a brand new video. If you guys haven't been here before, my name is Jackie Blanson and I am a nursing student here on YouTube. I talk about all my experiences while in nursing school. So today I decided to do something a little bit different. I wanted to talk about what I hate about being a nursing student. I don't really want to say hate because it's not necessarily that I hate it. It's just kind of the downsides of being a nursing student. Not the glamorous, fun, exciting things, but just the things that suck about being a nursing student, basically. I thought this would be kind of fun because I feel like a lot of the videos here on YouTube are all the fun things you get to do, you know what to expect and all that. But today I just want to talk about the not so fun parts about it, just so you guys can get a little perspective and you guys can see a little bit more of what you should expect from nursing school if you are not yet in. So if you guys aren't already, make sure you subscribe. If you haven't already, make sure you like this video. And yeah, let's go ahead and get started. Okay, so the first thing that I want to talk about, what I dislike about being a nursing student, what I dislike, what's not so fun, I still don't know how to say it because I really don't want to say hate, but just the not so fun things about nursing school is how hard it is to get in. Now, this is obviously my number one thing. The reason why I want to talk about this is because when I first declared my major as nursing, I didn't know how complex and how difficult it was to get into nursing. In my head, you got good grades, you know, A's and B's, you're good to go, you apply to nursing schools, you're gonna accept you, right? No, girl, no. I didn't realize that nursing students and pre-nursing students are literally savages and they are animals, and they all strive for straight A's, so literally your competition is a 4.0 GPA. I had no idea. I really didn't. I know you guys might be like, girl, what do you mean you didn't know? I didn't know. So when I went to go talk to an advisor about, you know, applying to nursing school, how to do everything, blah, 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 they were like, I see here that you have a lot of B's. And I'm like, yeah, I do, you know, worked hard, you know, A's and B's. You know, there's a couple A's in there. And she's just like, okay, well, I distinctly remember that when I saw this advisor, she was just like, the average GPA of students that get into our nursing program is a 3.4 to a 3.7. And I'm like, what? And she's like, yeah, that's the average. And I was like, what? And I really had no idea. And I remember leaving that office just feeling so discouraged and feeling so let down, just because I thought that just by getting a good, you know, just by getting good grades, A's and B's, I've always thought that those were good grades, that I'd be fine in the running to get into nursing school. I was very wrong about that. I ended up having to retake some classes in order to get A's, in order to get into nursing school, or in order to be eligible for nursing school. And I remember taking my T's, I remember taking my HESI, and both of those were so freaking hard, specifically the T's. In my opinion, the HESI really wasn't that bad. Yeah, so that's just the first thing that I want to talk about, is how hard it is to get into nursing school. It's not easy. It's very competitive. Nursing students are literally animals. Like, no wonder nurses are the baddest, you know, are bad ASS women and men, because, man, they're savages. They work super hard. And now, point number 2. And what I dislike about being a nursing student is definitely going to be not knowing how well you'll do on an exam, no matter how hard you study. Now, taking anatomy, physiology, microbiology, chemistry, nutrition, all these classes, I kind of already knew how I would do on an exam based on how much studying that I did. So if I studied, you know, really consistently, I did really, really good, you know, I got the material down, I know walking into that exam, I was going to get an A, I was going to get a B, you know, I kind of already knew how I would do. Nursing changed everything. It honestly changed everything. It changed my perspective on how I'm going to do in an exam. It changed my perspective that the amount of time you study equals to the grade that you'll get, just because nursing exams are so unique. The way that they do the exams, the application type questions, the critical thinking questions, all of that plays a role into how you'll do in an exam, not just your knowledge on the material. So that's definitely the second point that I want to make, is that just because you work really, really hard on studying for an exam does not mean you're going to get a good grade all the time. Obviously, sometimes, of course, you will. That doesn't mean that you're going to come into nursing school, you're going to study your butt off, and you're not going to do well. But I'm just saying that just because the types of questions that the exams ask, you have no idea what to expect. And the way that they ask this is not necessarily to trick you, but it is to trick you. They say it's not to trick you, but I feel tricked out every single time I walk out of an exam room. So I'll let you guys figure that out. But yeah, so that's definitely gonna be my second point, is the amount of work you put in does not always equal out to what grade you're gonna get. Okay, point number 3, having nurses that don't wanna have a student. Now, a lot of the times that I have gone into the hospital, I've walked in, go to the nurse's station, go to the charge nurse, and they see us. A lot of the times they run. I'm not even kidding. Like, they will literally walk as fast as they can away from us just so they don't get assigned a student. And this is kind of really discouraging. I remember when I first started nursing school, it was something that was really discouraging to me, just because you would see the reactions on their faces as soon as they saw students walking on the floor, or as soon as they were picked to have a student for the day. Honestly, I'm kind of over that. I've kind of gotten over and out of my shell of feeling like bad just because nurses don't want a student. I kind of just take advantage of it. And to be honest, you guys, you have to treat nurses like people. You don't treat them like they're above you, because in reality they're not. We're students. They were students once, and we're gonna be nurses one day. If somebody doesn't want to have me as a student, I will tell them, if you do not want to have me as, you know, following you around all day, you can let me know and I will be assigned to another nurse. Not in a rude way, not in a disrespectful way, just in an honest way. Wasting a clinical day, a 12-hour clinical day with a nurse that doesn't want to be with you, is literally a waste of time. And I personally haven't had a bad nurse where I felt like I had to tell them, if you don't want me, then I will find another nurse. But I've had classmates that have had those issues, and where they did have to go to the charge nurse or to a clinical instructor and say, I cannot work with this nurse, because they are so hateful and they're so against having a student. And I really don't know why. Because I feel like nursing students, at least me, I feel like I help nurses so freaking much. Like, I do the things that they don't want to do. I also volunteer to do a lot of things, so they just have to literally sit there and watch me do things. Like, if they have to hang an IV bag, if they have to go get, you know, orange juice for this patient, I wouldn't even ask my nurse, you want me to get that? I'll just go out and get it and bring it back and do what, you know, whatever the patient needs, so the nurse has less workload for them. That's definitely something that's really discouraging as a nursing student, is walking on the floor and literally seeing either nurses that ignore you, or nurses that literally run away from you, or nurses that are rude to you, and having to be with that nurse all day. That's definitely one of the downsides of being a nursing student. And that takes me to point number 4, is not being taken seriously as a nursing student. I feel like a lot of people don't take nursing students very serious. That includes patients, that includes nurses, that includes doctors. And the point is that sometimes as nursing students, since you have student nurse on your badge, patients don't even want you in their room. They don't want you performing anything on them. They don't want you to start their IVs. They don't want you to give them their shots, their injections. They don't want you to start their Foley. They don't want you to do anything just because you're a nursing student. And that is so frustrating, because obviously we need every single nurse in every single hospital was a student once, and they hadn't started injections yet, they hadn't started IVs yet, and they had to have started it on a patient in order to learn and in order to get better. So I really hate it when patients don't want us. It happened a lot when we were at the pediatric hospital. It didn't happen to me, but it did happen to a lot of my classmates, where we were doing head to toes on babies, like we were doing baby assessments, and it's nothing that we do. We don't give them injections, we don't hurt them, we don't, like, literally it's just checking the baby for, you know, any abnormalities. It's just an assessment that we had to do with our instructors. And just because we were students, the parents didn't even want us to touch their babies or to touch, you know, to do an assessment on them, even though we are literally learning this material fresh. We are very skilled, we are knowledgeable, and we will one day be nurses. They didn't even want us to be around their baby or to touch their baby. Or, like I said, adult patients don't want you to start anything on them or to do any procedures on them, because we are students and not nurses. So that is another downside of being a nursing student that I really want to talk about, is all the paperwork that we have to do in clinicals. We have talked about this with our instructors before. Our instructors have actually asked us specifically how they can make clinical a better learning experience for nursing students, and how they can improve the actual schedule of clinical in order to better help us, or in order to help us become better nurses and stuff like that. And a lot of the times, even our teachers themselves think that we have way too much paperwork, because you guys, if you haven't seen a care plan, if you haven't seen a concept map, those things are about 30 pages long, and you have to get so much, you spend so much time on the computer looking at a patient chart in order to fill out all this information. And of course, because of HIPAA reasons, you're not allowed to take a picture, you're not allowed to print any of this information. So you have to handwrite everything, and it just takes so much time out of your clinical day in order to do that. And you don't get to spend a lot of time with the actual patient themselves and talking to the patient and being with your nurse, because you have to sit at the computer and fill out this information that's either due at the end of the day or that's going to be due at the end of the week, because we have obviously clinical assignments that are due for grades. So that's definitely something that I really wish we didn't have as much paperwork, just because it takes so much time out of our day and it really takes away from a lot of things that we could be doing hands-on. I completely understand that we have to do clinical assignments, but even our teachers are like, I think that we give you guys way too much paperwork and you guys can't really take advantage of clinical, because we have so much paperwork to do, we have so much to fill out, and we spend so much time on the computer trying to figure out everything for this paperwork, trying to come up with the nursing diagnosis, interventions, stuff like that, filling out labs, filling out diagnostic tests, filling out patient information, a head to toe, all of that stuff. It takes a lot of time out of your clinical day. And I feel like that's something that a lot of people don't talk about here on YouTube, or they just don't talk about in general. Nursing students take a lot, like clinical isn't all about being with the patient, having fun, you know, starting IVs, doing Foley catheters, giving injections. A lot of the things that we do in clinical is paperwork. All right, so another thing that I want to talk about, another downside of being a nursing student, is definitely dealing with terrible nurses. Now, I can remember so many nurses from the start of my foundation semester, from my first clinical, bad nurses that I had to go all day, and just because I am a student, I couldn't say anything, but in my heart I knew the things that they did and the things that they were saying were wrong. And I really cannot stand following a terrible nurse. Like, that is probably the number one thing that on my list, is being with a terrible nurse for a clinical day. Now, I love my clinical day. It's the best part of nursing school in my opinion, because obviously we get to put into practice everything that we're learning. And when we have a terrible nurse, you're there all day. You have a bad day. Like, oh my God, I hate talking about this, because I've had, you know, if you guys have watched my pediatric semester video, you know, a terrible nurse that I had with, you guys know that I had a terrible nurse for my pediatric semester in one of my clinical days. And if you do want to watch that, I'll go ahead and link that right up here for you so you guys can see that. But other than that, I've had other bad experiences with the nurses, which I might even make a video about, just because I feel like it's something that I want to talk about, is dealing with bad nurses and how to deal with it as a student, and what I did to help me feel better when I did have a terrible nurse for clinical day. But that's definitely something I want to talk about. People that either don't treat their patients correctly, or they're not advocates for their patients, or they take shortcuts, or just, I don't know. And not only nurses that are bad to their patients, but nurses that are bad to their students, that ignore their students, that are rude to their students. Like, all that is something, it can really affect your mood too. I've had days where I've gone home and I've cried because I've had a terrible clinical day, whether the nurse is treating the patient bad or the nurse is treating me bad. That's something that I really can't stand about being a nursing student, is being with bad nurses. I feel like those experiences just put into perspective what kind of nurse you want to be, and it kind of reminds you that no matter how many years you have under your belt when you're a nurse, or when I become a nurse, I would never, ever want to become like that person. I never want to become burned out to the point where these people that I'm treating aren't people to me. It's just a job. I never want nursing to feel like a job to me. And I feel like you do see a lot of burnt out nurses in the hospital, and they come off that way, where they just don't care about their patients. They don't treat these patients as people. They treat them as a job that needs to be done, and they take away the caring and the advocate part, and they just do the actual, you know, the minimum that they could do for these patients. So that's definitely one of the worst parts of being a nursing student, is having to follow a bad nurse. Okay guys, now another thing that I want to talk about that I dislike about being a nursing student is definitely the competition between students. I've talked about this before in one of my previous videos. I'll go ahead and link it up here. But this is something that is something that a lot of students do. And once I put up that video, a lot of you guys have actually been telling me that a lot of nursing students have been telling me that that's the exact same thing that they suffer, you know, that they see in their nursing school between students, is students kind of competing against each other. related to test grades, related to clinical grades, related to, you know, all those things. And a lot of students that get discouraged because other students are doing better than them, or there's students that do so well that they kind of want to show off, and they go around asking everybody their test grade. And if somebody did well, they say, oh, that sucks that you got a 70. You can do better next time. I got a 95. And it's just like, it's so toxic, and I hate those students so much. I hate students that literally go out asking for test grades from all the other nursing students just to see what they got, to feel either validate that they did well in their exam, or to just say that they did better than somebody else, or just to feel better about themselves, you know, related to whatever grade they got. That's something that I really can't stand, is nursing students competing. And especially related to grades, it's just something that's so toxic. It's so negative. I wish there was a rule where you couldn't even talk about your nursing grades or whatever grade you got, so that I never had to hear those students, because I can't stand that. Thankfully, it doesn't really affect me, because like I've told you guys before, the grades that you get does not amount to the nurse that you're gonna be. So literally those grades do not matter. As long as you're passing and you're doing well, that's all that matters, you know? There's nurses that got C's that are working on floors that are amazing nurses, and will you ever know that they were C nurses? No, you wouldn't. They have RN on their scrubs, so you would never know. You're not going to ask them, how did you do in your med surg test 3? What grade did you get? No, you're not going to ask them that. Nobody cares. They're a nurse. That's the only thing that matters. So, okay guys, the last thing that I want to talk about is the stress that comes with nursing school, the anxiety that comes with nursing school. At the end of the day, that's something that we really can't get rid of, no matter, you know, there's things that we can do to help it, but I feel like that anxiety and that stress, you kind of have to think about it as you shows how much you really care about this, and how much this field really matters to you, how much these people matter to you, and all that. So it's just something that you always have to keep in mind, like, yeah, I do have a lot of stress. Yes, I do get a lot of anxiety related to my tests and things like that, and it's something that I can't stand. But then at the same time, you kind of have to turn around and see the positive in it. That just shows how much you really care about this, how much you're worth, how much of this is worth to you, and how hard you want to fight to be a nurse. So yeah, that's something that I guess I dislike. It's not something that I really hate, but it's something that I dislike, is how your mental health gets during nursing school. But that, like I said, that's something you can't help. So you kind of just have to figure out different ways to help your anxiety and help your stress while in nursing school. But yeah, I think those are all the points that I wanted to talk about. That's going to be everything that I want to talk about. I really hope you guys enjoyed today's video. If you did, make sure you give it a thumbs up. Remember, you guys, if you guys ever have any questions, you can always leave them down below in the comments. You can always message me on Instagram. I have a specific nursing Instagram. It's Nursing with Jackie. If you ever need anything, if you ever have any questions and you want to get in a more personal note with me, you can always DM me on that Instagram. But yeah, thank you guys so much for watching. Thank you for your support as always, and I hope you guys have a great day.